Okay, the next idea we want to talk about is systems development practices. Design, we called it earlier on. When we're trying to take socio-technical ideas and we're trying to apply them deliberately in order to get better outcomes for our information systems. So sometimes we'll see socio-technical ideas expressed in the tools and practices we use. So on this slide, here are a list of kind of aspects of systems development. They're deliberately a kind of varied list. The use case diagram, prototyping, agile methods, education and training, job design and user interface design, decision support systems. They're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of specific aspects of development practices and systems types, if decision support systems were a systems type. And my challenge to you is to explain for each one of those how they express a socio-technical understanding. Let's take an easy one as an example, prototyping. I think if you've studied for the course, you'll have the idea that it's often a good idea to build a test system, as it were, to try out your ideas, gain more feedback, help users buy into a project, help them express their specific needs, but also make them feel more valued and more taken into account as a systems development project goes ahead. And taking that one example of prototyping, I think you could explain the rationale for prototyping in terms of a socio-technical endeavor, a set of socio-technical objectives. Your job, go and take the others in my list there and try and do the same briefly. Some perhaps are more direct than others, but I challenge you, try and explain the idea in socio-technical terms. Now we come to the end of this first session, and I'm going to suggest some readings for you. They're mostly in the subject guide, though of course you need to follow the subject guide into the recommended textbooks. And I think chapters 1, 3 and 9 all discuss or reflect on socio-technical ideas, but that's not to say that they don't turn up in other places. Of course they do. I'd also encourage people to read the final chapter of the subject guide, the overview, where we're trying to sit back a little bit and get a bigger picture of the information systems field. And I think that helps you a lot when it comes to answering exam questions, which is the immediate task, but I think it helps you a lot in seeing what the subject's about and the scope of the subject in general, and that is beneficial for the exam kind of elements, but also for the future of your study within this program. We've got some additional activities too here. The suggestion here is that you watch this video on YouTube. It's a video by Professor Ian Somerville, who's a well-known software engineer, computer scientist from University of Lancaster. And he's talking about socio-technical systems from a computer scientist's perspective, which is a little bit different, but I think it's well worth watching, and you'll get some sense of how, to a computer scientist, somebody on the more technical end, applies and understands the concept. And if you do watch this, when you watch it, think about how the emphasis changes in his account versus what we've talked about here. We also have some questions for the moderated forum, and you need to apply your minds to this and then give us your best ideas, and we, myself and the moderator, will be able to give you some feedback. So the question's posed in two forms, same question, but I've chosen to put it in two ways just to make you feel comfortable that you've got something to say. The first is, what is the main benefit offered by socio-technical approach and who gains it? So presumably if we apply socio-technical ideas, we get some benefits from that versus, let's say, a purely technical view. But who gets the benefit? And that's not probably one person, but that's multiple people. The second way of putting our question is, what is the problem that a socio-technical approach is supposed to help resolve? Why do we need it? as well as the benefits. So in a sense, they're two versions of the same thing, and hopefully we can have a good discussion on the forum around these two questions. You also get a first example exam question, which I'll leave you to read. There's too many words there. But note that the question is sort of in two parts, as many exam questions are. First, asking you to sort of describe a piece of knowledge you should have about professional roles in the development of new information systems, and then asking you to do a little analysis. For each of the roles shown below, describe the socio-technical tensions that these people confront and presumably help to resolve as they do their work. And my advice to you is, don't just write down the first thing that comes to you. Be a little analytical. Plan your answer. For example, simple piece of exam technique, we give you 4 roles in the second part of the question. Clearly, you can include them in your answer to the first part of the question, but you'll look a bit dumb if you don't add 1 or 2 roles yourself, other roles, in order to flesh out the question. So see how you go with that one. We have a second sample exam question. This is one of those questions which asks you to write an essay. It ends with discuss. So it's sort of open-ended, and that redoubles the need to plan your answer. Open-ended questions can lead you to just say everything you think you know about the subject in no particular order. And good essays, it's about saying enough in a very particular order so you make a very particular point. So it says, in a world that's increasingly concerned about the security of personal and business data, the best solution is more technology, more encryption, more technical systems, so as to provide rock-solid protection. It's, as often with these kinds of questions, a little bit provocative. It obviously invites you to say, well, what does it invite you to say? Yes, I agree. Or, no, technical systems aren't the answer lies somewhere else. And it's probably quite good to have that sense of yes or no, because then you've got something to argue about. It's a bit more difficult to write a good essay which says, well, yes and no. But that's probably the essay you want to write, but it's got to be yes and no with some solid examples and points of how we resolve the yes and the no. That is the last slide for this session, so I'll leave you there and see you again next week.